I was getting to work with the Choctaw Nation. There's a dance DVD that's out there. It's in a blue case, but got to record several different traditional Choctaw dances. That in itself, I never realized how much of an opportunity that would become in my life. But I remember going to a dance practice shortly after that because, you get exposed to it. You want to, experience it for yourself. Well, I remember the chanter at that point in time was trying to remember how one of the dances went. Well, after you edit these things, anybody that works in editing knows that you hear things over and over and over. They started like, how does this dance go? I think it was the raccoon dance. And they're like, well, how does that one go? And I'm in the background going, showy da da dee showy da da dee And all of a sudden they're like, wait, you know the chants? I was like, at least the 5 or 6 that I recorded. And so my tenure as a dancer lived for about a month, if that, and then I became a chanter shortly after that, getting to help out the current chanter. And so I get to help fill in during that time. Well, in the meantime, there's also different aspects that we like to present from a cultural side, and one of those is the Lord's Prayer. Well, I've always been encouraged, you should learn the Lord's Prayer in Choctaw. You should learn the Lord's Prayer in Choctaw. Well, I started learning it in the background. I didn't tell anybody that I was actually trying to or wanting to. And then there was one Labor Day. Seth and I happened to be in the Bertram Bob Chapel up at Tuskahoma. It was one of the very first years that it was going to be used, and we were putting in hymnals that were going to be donated from the Choctaw Foundation, and it just felt like the right moment. I was like, I haven't sang this in front of anybody, but inside of this church with the way that it sounds, I want to sing this. So I actually sang the Lord's Prayer for the very first time in Choctaw in front of somebody else. Little did I know that the very next day that Mandy Lawson, and I will use her name absolutely because she's the one that did this to me. But Mandy looked at me standing up on the stage and said, "You're up." I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, you're going to sing the Lord's Prayer. This is the day." And I remember just looking completely flabbergasted. It's one of those moments that I didn't realize how much it would change my life, but it did dramatically. And for those that remember the State of the Nation back whenever we had it at Tuskahoma, it was just a full auditorium of people, not to mention those that were sitting on the hills, and so many individuals. And I had to sing a song in Choctaw that I literally had the enunciations written down on a piece of paper, and I actually don't remember the experience. I know that it went well because there's a recording of it, but I don't remember it at all. I remember coming to back in the green room, and they were like, "Oh, you did a good job." I was like, "What? What happened?" But at that point in time, I actually got to start singing the Lord's Prayer in Choctaw, and it's one of my absolute pleasures because whenever you start looking at what the Lord's Prayer means, it's truly a declaration of war against sin. And it's that argument that we get to have, well, getting closer to that religious aspect of my life, that's whenever the next aspect of my education started calling. I initially started out for my master's going to the University of Oklahoma in leadership. I went there for one semester, took 2 classes, and it wasn't the right fit. I got 2 A's in the class. It wasn't that the education was too difficult. It just didn't feel right. And so I ended up not going back in the spring semester. And that spring semester is actually whenever I was called into ministry. And that particular summer is whenever I started going to Grand Canyon University, and I eventually got my degree in seminary, Christian Studies, and get to, continue on doing that today, where I get to proclaim the name of Jesus and get to love on youth kids and get to encourage them to get to know the same Jesus that I get to serve. At the same time, inside of the foundation, inside of the Choctaw Nation, we're a faith family culture. So getting to stand up there, sing the Lord's Prayer, get to sing Amazing Grace, get to present my faith along with my work was one of the greatest pleasures that I could ever think of. Just get to stand up there, not only be a representative of the Choctaw Nation, but also be someone of faith.